Untitled. Stop. Hi friends and foes. Today I want to bring a console that is very near and dear to my heart. This console was the first true start into online play, 128 bits and high definition graphics, at least for the time. From the mind of Sega, let's take a look into the Sega Dreamcast. The Sega Dreamcast was the first 6th generation console that could, out of the box, play online games, surf the web,
How do you do, fellow kids?
and could reach a video quality of 480p. Let's talk about not only the console itself, but the history and what made it come to life. Sega was always a strong competitor in the video game market. The Master System was a powerful console for the 8-bit era, and the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, depending on where you are on this big globe, were great. That without mentioning all of the other handhelds and shit that Sega had at the time. But when they released the Sega Saturn, they dropped the ball hard. They took a decision based on fear. The fear that they had of the PS1 outselling them. But if you pair that with the Saturn being harder to develop for, less powerful with 3D and polygons and costing $299 against the PlayStation $199, it was a complete disaster. And that without taking into account that they had a surprise launch, basically fucking over a lot of the developers and stores, which didn't want to carry the Saturn because of that. The people lost all trust in the company, and at this time, Sega was hemorrhaging money. So they had to come up with a solution, and fast. And that's when they started working on a couple consoles called Black Belt and White Belt. A couple of changes and iterations and drops later, they had the codename Katana, the Dreamcast that looks like it wasn't ready for the Y2K virus, and that comes with Microsoft and Carta. But then, with a sleek design and a new powerful processor, we got what would be Sega's last console. And what a way to go. 4 controller ports, an AV port and a serial port that was never used, at least not by Sega, but that would prove useful in making this console live long past the date set by Sega.
You're about to die. Salute you.
With a great laser that sounds like it's grinding a knife to kill you, and a modem, a real one, to play online with your friends. One that actually works, because this one still works to this day. Sega did everything right. They made the developers happy by making a console that was a dream to program for, made the public happy via the $199 price and bagging a lot of games for the console, gave them the ability to go on the internet without the need of a computer and not only go on it but also play online. They pushed advertisement left, right and center, created hype and made people change their minds about the company. After they lost people with the Saturn, the release of this console was an event. The $99.99 was all people could think about, and oh boy did they deliver. The only ones that weren't keen on Dreamcast were EA. They demanded Sega change the processor, if not, they would not be making games for the platform. So Sega goes and says,
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you're cool. Fuck you, I'm out.
and made their own sports games. The controllers look like they took the 3D Saturn controller and gave it angles, and the space for things like a rumble pack and a memory card or a VMU. It's hard to get used to these controllers.
I won't lie. This is definitely me when
Plastic is very hard and angled, and the thumbsticks, or rather thumbstick, because it only has one, is slippery. But aside from that, it was awesome to have a controller that was so different and had a screen in the middle of it that you could take out, and I'm talking about the VMU. the craziest memory card to ever exist. These things were so weird, and not only they could work as a Tamagotchi, but when you disconnected it, you had other games. Depending on what you had downloaded on the thing, of course. But one flaw would make them lose Japan for good, and that was that they used GD-ROMs instead of DVDs. GD-ROMs were proprietary discs that were made harder to pirate for, but could only hold 1.2 gigs. On the other hand, the PS2 was also sold as a DVD player, the cheapest at the time, and PlayStation games could be bigger, with DVDs holding around 4.7 gigabytes. And to add insult to injury, the GD-ROM laser design actually made it easy to pirate, meaning they could dump most games into a CD-ROM and that was it. And all of this was made possible via the exploit of Dreamcast's MIL CD, or Music Interactive Live CD. It was a way for bands to send their music videos and put them on Dreamcast. Sadly, this never amounted to anything but piracy. The Dreamcast got discontinued in 2001 due to bad sales and a lot of other things, and Sega had to go from making hardware to making software. But it turned out better in the end. The Dreamcast stood the test of time and has remained alive up to this point, by people still making games for it and a lot of solutions to keep them relevant, from playing from an SD card to finally playing on HD glory. It's thinking. A lot of people can say how great the Dreamcast was, me included, but what is a console without games? So, let me show them to you. Ah, yes, the horror. Resident Evil 2, 3, and Code Veronica were released on the Dreamcast. Resident Evil 2 and 3 on the Dreamcast are the same beast, but better. Let me explain. You can see on the VMU how much ammo you have and your health. That alone made a huge difference to me. Without mentioning the better graphics, it's basically the same game, but then Capcom released Resident Evil Code Veronica, the last great classic RE game, the last game from this franchise with tank controls. It was and still is a great game that intended to close the Redfield beef with Wesker, but with extra steps. If you get your hands on it, don't let it go. Well, either the Dreamcast or the PS2 version of the game, or GameCube.
Oh yeah, that felt good.
Soul
Calibur was a special case. A case where the console version looked miles better than the arcade. This is the sequel for Soul Blade, and did this game kick ass at the time. Even by today's standards, it's a great looking game, and it plays awesome. Yes, it has a couple of dated mechanics, and the audio compression makes it sound like you're in a box, but aside from that, you're going to get one of the best fighting games for the console. RPGs are not something people paired with Sega consoles. Luckily for us, Sega also fixed that when launching the Dreamcast, but they made it extra special. And that extra special is Skies of Arcadia. We follow a ragtag group of sky pirates, yes, Pirates of the Sky, with the premise of saving the world with battle mechanics are easy to get used to and keep surprising you even after the half point of the game. You can also battle using ships, flying ships. It has aged very well. The simple yet detailed graphics make it a classic that can be enjoyed by any RPG fan. Now let me ask you this. What is better than drawing a dick on the wall of your asshole neighbor? Well, doing it with cel-shaded graphics, of course. And we're talking about Jet Grind Radio, or Jet Set Radio, depending on, again, where you are in this big bowl of shit we're living in. This game was full of the 90s, early 2000s dude. It's an entertaining and charming game, one where you have to tag the entire city to mark your territory, making friends and sticking it to the man. Yeah. I can describe Mach and X as a great looking game, cel-shaded of course, with interesting mechanics that keep their gameplay fresh, such as changing bodies, but frustrating as hell. It's got a certain early 2000s yank, but it is very enjoyable, and I recommend it here, and the story is quite interesting, so give it a chance. The classic, the meme, the weird fandom owner, Chris Chan, the yucky ucky hedgehog.
Electric hedgehog power! Pew!
Sonic Adventure. Now, remember that it wasn't like that at the time. For the Dreamcast, Sonic Adventure was a big deal. It was the triumphant return for the Dreamcast after having no games on the Saturn. I'll leave you to decide if it's great or not, because there's a huge debate around it, and I don't want to get stabbed by furries. I don't. Oh yeah, the shmup em all. This was heavily based on Radiant Silvergun, the Saturn cult classic, but it set itself apart. It's both a bullet hell and an enjoyable game. The mechanics make it so you can change from light to dark, so you can either shoot and absorb both bullets from the respective color that you have. One color affects the enemies of the other color more, but the same can be said for you. This has skyrocketed in price, but if you can't get the Dreamcast port, you can get the GameCube port, and there's a version for the Switch. However you played it, I will tell you, give Ikaruga a chance because it's a cult classic for a reason. By now, you should have guessed that my voice sounds a little bit different, and that's because I'm a little bit under the weather, and I'm recording this as I edit because I fucked up and I forgot to record this part. But hey, fuck it, moving on. If you want Goofy to go to a haunted house where everything is too real but he's still fucking goofy, oh boy, do I have the game for you. And that game would be Illbleed. The game I would describe as quirky because I have no other way of describing it. And it approaches horror in a very strange way. You advance by defending yourself but also detecting traps and scares while saving your friends so you can play as them. Oh, and you get to enjoy the great voice acting in the game, so yeah. Thank you, Sega. Very cool.
What, Michelle? Why didn't you listen to Eriko's speech?
I don't need to. I know she'll win. Here, take a look at this.
Do you know any place where sailors hang out?
As a matter of fact, no. I don't know where you can find some sailors. I work in an office. I'm actually self-employed. I'm a YouTuber that has 40 followers. So no, I don't know where I can find sailors nor money. But that phrase was the swan song for the Dreamcast. The most expensive game to create, costing around $70 million to make, mixing normal life and adventure. While you ask everyone,
do you know any place where sailors hang out?
Yu Suzuki gave us a great adventure that we craved for around 20 years to end, and it didn't end. So yeah, fuck you, Landy. Now, before CSGO, Overwatch, and Roblox, there was the OG game, a game to join a generation, Phantasy Star Online. Customization, leveling up, text messages, and hackers were an everyday thing with this game. But get this, people created something called the Dream Pie. Dream, I said dream. I said dream, I swear, with a D. But with this Dream Pie, you're able to play Phantasy Star Online right now. And there are still servers up, made by fans, of course. There are a lot of games I left out. Some incredible ports, some fighting games, Seaman, but I didn't want to show all of them, just the ones I thought were noteworthy enough for me and when I lived with the Dreamcast. But I just wanted to showcase how good the Dreamcast was and why was it that, you know, it was iconic at the time and it's still iconic today. But that was all from my end. So thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing my content. You're actually helping me out a lot. See you next time. Bless. Bye. See you next time.